Good evening and welcome to the Italian Impact Podcast. I am your host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and as always, I want to thank you for tuning in. And you will notice something very special about this episode. It is one of the first where we're going to try and actually record video. So if the video does not come out well, which this is what it is, you're welcome, ladies. Then what we'll do is we'll just stick to audio. So if you're listening to this on podcast, you're missing it. If you're not on podcast and you're on YouTube listening to this, then you're getting the full Monty, i.e. a face for radio. With that being said, I was brought to my attention, only because I have about a 20-second attention span, that this is the 100th episode. Interesting. I should have did more fanfare for this, but I did bring in, I guess I want to say that I brought in, mediocrity at its finest for my guest for the 100th episode. I should have did better. Actually, I've got a great guest, and I'm actually looking forward to this one. But I always want to give a shout out to my listeners all over the world. I literally say that not in a, look at me, but in like a mind blown way. I have to control the buttons. I have to save. I got a lot of things to do. There's a lot of pressure on me. So for my listeners all over the world, I want you to know that I'm going to video so that when you, and it's the craziest thing. I got people in China, Russia, Singapore, Africa, Europe, different countries in Europe, Brazil, Canada, Australia, literally downloading the show. I'm still like, how do you find me? Well, thank you for finding me, and thank you for tuning in. I also want to encourage you and remind you, unfortunately, it's not available to folks all over the world unless you can find a way to watch Amazon Prime. But the documentary Fedeltà, Soldier Prisoner, is available on Amazon Prime. If you have not watched it, please watch it, because this is the 80th anniversary of the construction of the chapel, which that story is actually told in the documentary. So if you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon. Fedeltà, Soldier Prisoner. Please check it out. And with that being said, I am encouraging you that if you are anywhere near Pennsylvania or can be near Pennsylvania in September 11th, a lot of the families, some of them you're going to see in the documentary, some of them are going to be new, coming over here for the first time. But please come out to Chambersburg in September, on September 11th to be exact, for all the festivities. Meet these families of the prisoners. It's going to be a great time. With that being said, I'd like to welcome this week's special guest, Nick Vizzoca. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Nick, from now on, I'm going to call you Chris. You're okay with this, right?
I'm fine with it.
I'll tell you what, this is the first time I've done video, and I am telling you, I keep looking at that camera, and it is just throwing me off.
I know, you're like, oh my God, I'm good looking.
No, I'm thinking I just lost 27% of my user base. They had a better, you know what it is when I do the soft, sultry voice, and I go down to the 2 a.m.
And you let those women imagine what you look like. Now they see it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going camera to you, buddy. All you, Nick. So let's start with you. Author, Pittsburgh guy, good Italian. Start with you, your family. Where are you from?
So I was born in South Oakland, like every other great Pittsburgher. Andy Warhol, Dan Marino. Yeah, right. Dan Marino, Bruno Sammartino, everybody. Yeah, so I'm a working class, first generation. My parents immigrated from Italy in the late 60s. I was born in 72. My dad's a bus driver, mom's seamstress. So grew up in Oakland, moved out to the suburbs when I was about 5. But yeah, Italian roots through and through.
Now, funny thing, you and I were talking beforehand, and a lot of those names that you just mentioned are they're not just famous in Pittsburgh, but they're very famous people. Yeah. But they're also, a lot of them from the same neighborhood. Is that correct?
That's correct. We so Bruno Sammartino's family I grew up about 3 doors away. The Warhols were a block away, and the Marinos were by our church about 2 blocks away. So yeah, we were all within walking distance.
Now, that must have made it interesting when you were going trick-or-treating.
Well, trick-or-treating, and if you drive through Oakland now, there's a nice big sign that says South Oakland, home of Bruno and Andy and Dan. But what about me? I said, I'm going to take a Sharpie. I'm going to put my name up there.
Why not? You've earned it. Let's talk a little bit. So you, being first-generation Italian, are you a citizen? Did you learn Italian? What was life growing up? Because when your family came over here, it was after, I'm going to call it that kind of the discrimination, the desperation, the poverty, the discrimination. By the 60s, there are still stereotypes that Italians have to face to this day, but by then, a lot of what I'll call that organized discrimination, can't buy a house in certain neighborhoods, right. Can't sell to Italians, just other stereotypes that are, again, still prevalent in some ways. You kind of, they came over sort of when that was over. How did that impact your growing up?
I got to tell you, for me, and I wrote this even in the book, I felt like I was born in Italy. Everybody on my street, everybody in the neighborhood spoke Italian. So I didn't know any different. And in fact, when we did move and I started school, I spoke no English. I didn't start speaking English till about third grade. And we didn't know this. My teacher didn't know. My kindergarten teacher thought I had a learning disability until one day she called my parents in and she said, "We have a problem." She said, "Your son took a test and he got all 26 questions wrong." My dad barely spoke English. My mom, no English. She said, "What are you talking? Can I see the test?" So my teacher shows my dad the test, and my dad smiled, gave it back to her, and she goes, "These are all right. He answered you in Italian."
Ah, interesting. Do you still speak Italian to that level of fluency?
Yeah, I do. Particularly around my parents. A little bit going away now that my grandparents are gone. My grandfather was in World War II, so it was nice getting those stories from him. But as time passes, you kind of lose it a little bit.
Now, I will ask kind of I don't want to say a funny and ironic question. He said he was in World War II, fought for the Italians.
Prisoner in Africa.
Interesting, because obviously that was the documentary was about the Italian prisoners. Because one thing that gets lost was the Italians. Certain elements of the Italian population were the fascist Mussolini, and certain elements clearly were not. And then there were just a lot of people in the middle. So when they got rid of him, you saw what the country really was, which was not pro-Mussolini, was not pro-fascism, kind of dragged into this. When they immigrated here, how were things different for them? Because at one time, here they were an enemy of the United States, and later on they then immigrate to the United States.
Well, I think what they did was they kind of coalesced all in one place. So I had grandparents in Oakland, I had grandparents in Sharpsburg, and around them they surrounded themselves with Italians, right? So they felt very comfortable. They were never threatened. They always said this was the greatest country in the world. When all four of my grandparents came here, my parents. And you would get those stories. You're absolutely right. As a soldier, that's what I miss, getting those stories from my grandfather. Hearing from him, Nick, I was 20 feet from Hitler. I was 30 feet from Mussolini. I mean, my grandfather, we joked, not joked, but he would just stare off, would never really, you could tell he was just thinking about something. And one time I asked him, I said, no, I said, "What happened to your finger?" He only had half a ring finger. Wouldn't tell me. Then finally, towards the end, he said, "You keep asking me, I'll tell you. They took it." I said, "Who took it?" "The Germans. They wanted the gold. They wanted my wedding band. I wouldn't give it up. So they cut his finger."
Whoa. So
and they took it.
So wait a minute. When they did that, was that a question of before or after Italy changed sides, or was that while they were still allies?
Still allies.
And they cut his finger off anyways?
Yeah, he only had half a ring finger.
Not a very good friend.
No.
They literally just said, "We want your ring."
Yeah. And some of those stories, I can't even imagine. That's why when I look now and I see a veteran out there, and you just can't even imagine what the sacrifice that these men and women went through back then. And we complain. And you see the generation today, it's like, stop your bitching, right? I'm sorry.
You can use the B word because we're on podcasts.
Yeah, so stop it. I mean, look what these people went through.
Well, it's funny you say that because I don't know if you remember the old show Hogan's Heroes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you remember how
nothing.
Well, you remember how they would always say like, "Oh, we're going to send you to the Russian front. We're going to send you to the Russian front." And that was like the fear of the Germans having to go fight in the Russian front. And it's kind of ironic because now you have a Russian front. You have the Ukrainians and the Russians fighting, and it's terrible. And it's like that sort of I don't want to say time frame is almost kind of recaptured in a way that fighting, that just misery, like you're not going where it's a quasi trench warfare. Mm-hmm. It's modern weaponry, but they're still stuck, in some ways literally in trenches. So it's just a grind and just killing each other, and it's just going to keep going until somebody's either all dead or just somebody says enough.
Right.
And but at the same time now that's happening, to your point, look what people talk about, quote, their rights, or I've lost theirs, I can't do that, or oh my God. I mean, it's like you don't even have to go back in time to get a feel for how bad it could have been. Or even in places in Africa where there's still fighting that mirrors what it was, decades and decades ago.
Exactly. Civil wars, all over the world. So when we see these things and we complain about a show not doing something or not representing this, or shut up. No, seriously, there's the world's a much bigger. There's many things going on in this world that are much bigger than us. We're just a speck here, And so when I would hear what my grandfather went through, what my parents went through. My dad came here at 23 years old with nothing but the clothes on his back, and look what he did. Raised 3 kids. Him and my mom put us through college. We lived this great life, and that's why my grandfather always said he never hold any resentment against the Germans or this or that. No, it's what you make of it, right? And so I think when people ask me if there's one word that could describe you, I say resilience. And there's no other word, just resilience.
Well, it's funny because that harboring animosity will just eat you up. And
Exactly.
It doesn't get you anything. It doesn't change the past. You have to learn to forgive. And I'm not saying that's easy, and it's but there's a necessary in that. The good book doesn't just tell you these things entirely because it's morally correct. It tells you that because it's important for your soul to not fade out just due to anger. I mean, look at people today. They're so angry. I mean, I don't like this guy, so I'm blowing up, car lots. It's nuts.
Exactly.
You don't have to agree with people,
No.
but my God, are you really going to go out and key someone's car because you don't like them? I mean, is that the insanity that we've come to?
Unfortunately, yes.
Welcome to America,
Yeah,
folks.
exactly.
And, for our foreign listeners, it's not as bad as it sounds. We're okay over here still.
It's not. We're good. There's a lot of good people here.
Right.
I mean, I think you go anywhere in the world that you go. I mean, I've done a lot of work in many different countries I've been fortunate with, large health systems, and there are good people everywhere that want good things.
Now let's start talking about you a little more here because, you're first generation, you come over here, like you said, you start off speaking Italian in the home. Not an unusual problem with even to this day where there are certain folks that immigrate here and they're in neighborhoods. Spanish is a perfect example.
Perfect.
They get in these Spanish neighborhoods. They're not really forced to speak English in any kind of frequency until they're forced outside of the neighborhood. Then it's like they got to learn Spanish. With that being said, you grow up. What was life like? I know you kind of said it was like growing up in Italy, but give me an example of some of those things that you think were unique to your life that, say, the average American didn't experience, or even some Italian Americans who may be several generations removed.
I think I had a great life growing up. I think what was unusual for me is my mom would make my clothes, right? So
You're saying make your clothes?
My mom's was seamstress, so my uncle was a tailor. My other uncle was a tailor, so they could make suits from scratch. So she would make our clothes. I didn't have to go to the store to buy them, right? She would go fabric and make clothes. Sunday dinner, I thought was unique to me. When you see now, everybody's just running off, too busy to do things. But every Sunday, we knew where we were going to be. We knew that, we started at 3 o'clock and 2 o'clock. We were at Nana's house, and ladies would start cooking, and the guys were playing cards or sitting outside, and the kids were playing. And it was all night. It was an evening thing, and it was normal for me. So when my American friends, when I started to get older, and I'm like, they're like, what are you doing? It's Sunday. Let's go to the ballpark. Let's go here. I'm like, no, it's Sunday dinner, and I miss that now, because slowly as that generation goes, my grandparents and now aunts and uncles are going. You try to continue that with the kids, and you try to show them, but you can't recreate it. I think to me that's one of the things that this world is missing.
It's got to be organic.
Has to be.
It
can't be forced.
And I agree with that, because a lot of people are trying to bring back, they're trying to bring back these, what I'll call Italian traditions. And that's good.
Yeah.
But don't just say, I'm going to make a tradition because I read, like, for example, the Sunday supper is the perfect example. Mm-hmm. I don't think we had Sunday supper like that growing up. Our supper, for lack of a better term, the spaghetti night, what I'll call it, was actually Monday. So when people talk about Sunday dinner, I'm like, by then my grandma was pretty tired, and she probably didn't feel like, that was kind of a day of rest almost. So people Sunday dinner, I'm like, to me, that's kind of a foreign concept, but I get it.
Yeah.
So if I do it, I don't do it out of some false nostalgia,
right?
Because it wasn't me. But I do like the idea of saying, okay, what's a tradition that may have been in the family that got lost? Let's do that. Okay, I get it, but it's got to be not just doing it for the sake of doing it. It's got to be like, we really want. Let's all agree. We're gonna come every Sunday. We're gonna do this, and this is why we're gonna do it.
Yeah, and even to this day, my parents, I'm fortunate enough they're still alive, and my mom will make dinner. And if we don't show up Sunday, she'll say, Nick, I put it in the freezer. You got to come get it, right? Some of the other things, it wasn't unusual to go downstairs, have a cold cellar, and see meat hanging from it, in the cold cellar. At the end of every summer, 10, 15 bushels of tomatoes, and we made sauce for the winter. Sausage, mushrooms, olives. Like this was just normal. Like, I didn't think anything of it. We never bought bread in the store. My mom baked bread. I mean, my wife does it now. We just don't. She bakes homemade pasta. Things that you would run to the store to get, right. A pound of Barilla or a pound of, we would make it. And it was normal. Like, I didn't think anything of it. To me, it was like doesn't everybody do this?
The short answer is no.
No, right?
No.
Right.
But again, the folks that are watching know it doesn't mean or listening or watching. I can say that now. The folks that are kind of listening, watching, again, it doesn't mean don't create your own, traditions. We all should have something, and I think that's what will be the bonding. I will say this: the big one for us is, and I did find out this is sort of an Italian thing, was Christmas Eve. That's the big one.
So Christmas Eve is by far, my son knows this, my favorite holiday. I mean, I love Easter. Don't get me wrong, but being Catholic, Christmas Eve, 7 fishes. That's it. I mean, Christmas Day is great too, but that Christmas Eve, you started early in the morning.
Right.
And
it's all the prep work all day long, and then by 1 or 2 you're already eating, and you keep eating.
Yeah, and then it's early evening, and you're like, okay, what are we going to do now? Well, let's sit around, we'll eat a little bit more, and then you get in the car about 10:30, and you go to midnight mass, and that's just the way it was. So it's Christmas Eve was and is something special.
Yeah, that is one of the few traditions I think that has survived in my family. Like I said, the Sunday supper was not a big thing. The 7 fishes is also something I don't necessarily recall. I remember my grandmother doing fish and cooking fish, but 7 fishes was. I've had Italians tell me that's not an Italian thing, and other Italians tell me it is.
It's not. It's really not. I mean, it's not truly. Do you want to find 7 unique fishes or 5 fish to cook 7 different ways? I mean, what's the difference? But I didn't care. To me, I couldn't give a shit. I just wanted to sit down and eat because it was fantastic, and I don't care.
I couldn't do it. She would bread the what were the little
smelts?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I just
no. Yeah, I could do any of it. But again, it was less about. So think about what you just said. Whether it was Spaghetti Monday or Sunday dinner. And I think in the Italian culture, it's food that brought everybody together, right? And it didn't matter what it was. Like you could literally, put a piece of cardboard on the table and put some sauce on it, but it was the conversation that happened.
Kind of like you're eating at Olive Garden. Hey, yo.
No disrespect to
Sorry.
Olive Garden.
Actually, listen, I'm going to say one thing. I love their salad.
Oh, yeah, bread, salad,
the
bread.
problem with the pasta is it's like...
Well, I think everything. I would tell people, ask me all the time, "What's your favorite Italian restaurant? What's your favorite Italian restaurant?" And it's all been Americanized. It's no different if you ask a Chinese person here in America, "What's your favorite Chinese restaurant?" That doesn't exist. I'll ask. I have a neighbor who's Indian, and I love Indian food. And I'll say, "Mish, where's the best Indian restaurant?" Doesn't exist. Come to my house, he'll say.
Yeah, I do think there's something to be said about homemade. It's the custom. The problem with any restaurant. Now there are some mom and pop restaurants that will give you legitimately someone's in the back still cooking it. But the problem with the chain restaurants, it's not even necessarily that it's bad, and it's not even necessarily that it's not authentic Italian. It's just that you touched on something. It's not even the food. It's the thing that you brought together, and food happens to be that. So when people talk about food being an important thing in the Italian community, it's because it's not about what you're putting in your mouth. It's about all the thing that went around it. It's the prep work. It's the getting together, just to get it ready to set the table, to eat together, to sit down, to relax afterwards. And the central theme of that was the food, but it's not necessarily even what you put on that table.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, like I said, my wife and I and the kids, we'll find little mom and pops around here in Western Pennsylvania, and you can find them. And there's a couple that are our favorites where we'll go and we'll sit 3-4 hours and we'll talk to the owner. He'll come out and sit down at the table with you. And that's what you want. It's that atmosphere. It's that connection. And there's that 6 degrees of separation. You start talking, and next thing you know, there's a couple of these restaurants that the folks have gone over to Italy to train to cook, right? And but to me, I always tell my mother, I said, you don't make the meatballs like Nonna does. It was the sweat and the love and whatever went into it. It's just, you're right. It's that whole preparation. It's not just the food. It doesn't come out of a package.
Right.
It was all from scratch.
Now, let me ask you, so after you kind of grow up and you went out, was there a drop-off, or this is just always who you've been?
This is always who I've been. I mean, I'm not ashamed of it. Whether it was my grandfather, my dad, and then later on in life, when I reconnected with Joseph D'Andrea, he always would tell me, you don't ever be ashamed of your heritage, know, and dig into it and really find out who you are and where you come from. And that's what makes you proud. And I think everybody should take pride in that. We're all Americans, right? But we're all from somewhere, and find out where you're from and be proud of that. Don't be ashamed.
All right, folks, I am going to take a quick pause. Joe, good luck editing this video, but we're going to put some commercials in here, and we're going to have to figure out sometime in the future what the logo will be when we put the commercials in. So for the 100th episode, I'm throwing every curveball out there. So we'll be right back. Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. For all of your plumbing needs, be sure to try Palucci Plumbing. Nick and the team have decades of experience and will get you back up and running. For more information, call Palucci Plumbing at 412-782-5050. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. All right, welcome back, folks, and I hope you enjoyed the little break. And I appreciate Joe's editing efforts there. So, all I could say is thanks, Joe. That's Joe Hale, who's been doing this now for his 100th episode with me. And actually, Joe and I have been doing it longer than that because I was on the radio before this, and Joe used to edit those. But let's kind of go back to family and culture, and you were talking about a different Joe DeAndrea. Again, he was a mentor of mine, and I remember him and I having that conversation that when he came over here, I don't think he was necessarily ashamed of his culture, but I think there was a little bit of bitterness towards the I don't want to call it if it's the government, the country, whatever it was. But when he went back and kind of rediscovered that, kind of talk about that. What did that mean to you? Because you've been back and never.
I've not been back.
Wow. So interesting because he went back and it sort of reconnected. You have a weird thing where they came here, but you never really had the break like that.
No. So my sister, my youngest sister, actually went and took her family back to see where my dad grew up, where my mother grew up. And got to see some really cool things and really connected with our heritage. My grandfather on my dad's side, his father was a saddle maker, in the region of Molese and Abruzzi. So she got to see something that he made in a museum, like one of these early saddles, wow. From the early 1900s. So it was really cool. Like she got to connect and had this like emotional connection. She got to see his house. She got to see my dad's house. We still have land over there. So she got to see that. She said, well, we should do something with this, Nick, right? So I have not. Then COVID hit. Like we had every intention to try to get over there. But now that, I wouldn't want to say things are settling down in the world. I mean, things are crazy. But, I would love to take my family back. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going through my process of dual citizenship. And I'd love to get a piece of land or a house and rehab it and go there and stay there.
Funny you say that. As the honorary consulate here in Pittsburgh, we'll talk further about this. But I kind of say that quasi-jokingly, quasi-serious. You know the problem with video is every time I adjust, everyone's going to see this.
That's all right. Like he's got many good angles, right?
I'm telling you, hello. It's like camera one, camera two, camera one, camera two. All right, so but back to the property because it's interesting you say that. I went back for the first time to the town probably in I want to say 2016, 17. And you're right about one thing. When you see it, there is something, I don't know how to explain it.
I don't either.
It is just something when you go back. I just really tell you, do it. Yeah. Don't wait, don't think, don't just go do it. Pick a date, buy the tickets and go do it. When I went back to met relatives for the first time, that was, it's one, again, you just can't explain it. You're like, this could have been a very different part of my life.
Right.
But because of this event, the immigration of how many years ago, it's like it's like a tree was cut and now you've repaired it. And I don't think people understand the impact that immigration has on families. Now, the further removed you go, it might be a little less, emotionally impactful. But in your case, you have you've got relatives over there.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the property. You can go see it. Like I was able to actually go see. What's nice is somebody in the family still owns the house that my great-grandfather was born in. That's pretty neat because it's been a long time. Great-grandfather, he was, born in the late 1800s. But to still have that in the family and go see that, and you're like, wow. Like at some point he was literally born in the house. At some point moves, and so there's just something there. And I almost think like we're almost genetically predispositioned, and I don't know how to explain it.
It's funny because we were watching a program last night on one of these channels, Create or PBS, and it was like this show, this Dream of Italy, and she was taking a tour of the towns where, and I'm like, oh my God, I said to my wife, I said, Marie, this is where my family's from. And as I'm watching it, I'm getting this like odd, and she said, what are you doing? What's wrong? I said, do you ever get a feeling like that's a comfortable place? Like I'm watching that and it feels like I've been there.
Yes.
Like it's in some other time, I've been there. Like that feels like home.
It's almost like we genetically pass down our memories. I tell you what, I had a guest on here and she called it a historic memory. And she said the same thing. She said the first time I was there, and I had the exact same thing happen to me. The first time I stepped foot, I said, I feel like I've been here all my life.
Yeah.
It was like, I couldn't explain it. It was almost like I was supposed to be here.
Exactly.
And it was just the weirdest thing.
Yeah. And I think for, like you said, your great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, my dad's grandfather, my grandfather was 9 years old when his dad died of Spanish flu. So that was, years ago. And then my dad being born during the war. Like my grandfather would tell the story, your father was born, March 8th, 1944, during the war when we all had to be in the house and you hear the sirens go off and there's your grandmother giving birth. He said, I had to go find the doctor. By the time I got back, he was delivered. And you know what? They tied off his umbilical cord with your grandmother's shoelace. And it was like, this is crazy. And now we complain about going to the hospital or going here or traffic. And these people are giving birth during air raids.
Humanity is programmed to survive.
Absolutely.
We do it to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Between the toxins that we eat and our absolute dependence, thinking that we can't make it unless we go to the doctor. When the truth of the matter is, again, I'll get a little bit political. For the last 30, 40, 50 years, we have literally been eating poisons. And we can't figure out why our health is in the toilet. So the more we process our food and do what Mother Nature does not want us to do, and we do, and we scratch our head and say, why don't I feel well? Why can't I sleep well? Why does my head hurt? It's not rocket science. Having a baby is a natural thing.
Yeah.
Maybe the doctor makes sure the whole placenta's out, tie it up. But otherwise, what's the difference between that and an animal?
I agree. And so, some of the cool things that you just said, and I'm sure you've got this.
I say a lot of cool things. You're going to quote me in your next book.
I will.
Right,
but we talk about all of your listeners all over the world, and for those who don't know or do know, there are 7 regions in the world, blue zones, right, where there's a great concentration of centenarians. And if you look at those, Italy's one of them, Sardinia is one of them, and then you have Japan, and then you have California, the Adventists. Why? To your point, right? Think about it. Like my cousin lives in Italy right now. She doesn't have a car. She has nothing. If she wants to eat, she's got to go to the grocery store. She's got to walk a mile to it and then walk home and carry what you got. We have a friend who lives in Japan. He said, Nick, my refrigerator is smaller than my college refrigerator because on the way home, we stop at the market. It's all fresh. We get what we need. We cook it. We eat it. End of story. And then we talk about doctors. My grandfather died. He was 86 years old. For the last 9 years of his life, he told me, he's like, Nick, I'm pissing blood. I said, no, you got to go to the doctor. He'll kill me. That's what he would tell me. He'll kill me if I go to the doctor. And so he was, like, him and I had cancer as a child. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so did he. He didn't have any treatments. He's like, it's it. I've lived a good life. He said. And
wait, how old was he when he had it?
85.
Oh, and he just said, the hell with it.
Yeah, he just said, the hell with it. But when he said to me, I've lived a good life, and I looked at him, I go, are you kidding me right now? You fought in World War II. You were a prisoner of war. Look at everything you went through, the earthquakes, this, and you lived a good life. Think about that. So people out there need to, I get it. There's hardships all over the world. We're all fighting things hard. And this is what I've said to the kids, and life is hard, right? Whether it's You hear marriage. Oh, my marriage is this. Okay, marriage is hard, but guess what, dipshit? So's divorce. So
it's
choose
cheaper
your hard.
to keep. It is. It's cheaper to keep her. Amen, brother. You know what though? It's funny because I'm not ashamed of my faith. I try to live it, and I'll say something. And one of the things that absolutely struck me, as you mature in life, you also become more introspective. Mm-hmm. And my faith has grown a lot over the last many years. And one of the things I've really taken to heart is the whole carry your cross, follow the good Lord. So you got to pick up your cross and follow me. And a lot of people, and I love this term, they go to these religions. I'm gonna deviate, but I'm gonna come back. They go to these religions and they call them health and wealth, where the preacher says, all you gotta do is just pray to God and you're gonna be healthy and you're gonna be rich. It's like, nowhere are we promised that in life. The only thing we're promised from the good Lord, He's gonna be there for us. But to your point is, if you don't believe in the Bible, then I'll quote Led Zeppelin, upon us all a little rain must fall. It's from the Rain Song, but it's also from the book of Job.
Yep.
So everyone's going to have a good time and a bad time. You just have to learn to weather the storm. The problem is, and this is where Western civilization has really gotten bad. And I'm going to come back to that refrigerator because I want to make a comment about that. Is we become very complacent with luxury. Mm-hmm. And it becomes our norm. And even I find myself, if I get a pain, like we were talking about before the show, where I had the headache and and I'm thinking, did I have a stroke? And my wife says, you should go to the doctor. I'm like, to your point, it's like, if I were in the middle of somewhere where there wasn't a doctor and this had happened to me, what could I do? Nothing. I have to trust my body.
Right.
There's nothing they can do for me. By the way, I don't think I had a stroke. I just think it was eye strain. But just for the record.
Yeah, he looks good. You can see him on video. He looks good. See?
I don't want to go there. No. But my point, but you go back to that refrigerator, because I lived in Japan for 3 years. And when I think back on it, you know what? You're right. My refrigerator was small.
Right.
And now I live here. My refrigerator is huge. And you know what? It's full. And I keep telling my wife, stop buying that junk. We don't need it. We don't need it. But you want it. I said, you're not doing me, sorry, honey. You're not doing me any favors buying something that you know is not good for us. Like, we don't do ourselves any favors buying what's good, what we don't need. And that's the biggest problem, is needs versus wants. And when you step back and you say, what do I really need? Life is simple.
Life is real simple.
It's when you make it complicated because you start adding wants. And I'm guilty of it. Like I said, I'm not saying this in a judgmental manner, but these people that live in these blue zones, they know the difference between needs and wants. I need to go eat some food. I'm going to eat a little food. But I'm not going to go because I'm bored and eat a bunch of ho-hos.
But I think the people in the blue zones, too, there's that social connection.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there's this feeling of community. Here, if you have one refrigerator, I would be curious to ask people, how many refrigerators do you have in your house? Right. See, you've got two.
Well, somebody gave us one, so we put it in the garage. Okay, and you know what? We put stuff in it.
But you put stuff in it.
Exactly.
Right. Or you get a freezer. And, well, I got to fill it. So now I got to go to Costco or Sam's or BJ's. And we go to these stores and you buy boxes of – I'll never forget when my cousin was here from Italy. And when they would come for a couple months at a time. And we took them to get ice cream. And we took them to, I don't remember, Brewster's or somewhere. And she ordered a cone. And they brought this damn thing out that was about 8 inches tall. And she goes, is this for all of us? And I said, no. I said, she looked at me and she goes, this is why you're all fat.
Yes.
So when my sister went to Italy and she said, they had dinner and it was nice. They were sitting there. They were by the sea and they got dessert and they got this little cup with gelato. And it satisfied you. And that was it. But she said, that little cup took me an hour to eat because I had to talk. And then you had your espresso or your cappuccino and then you just talk. But here, we're like, it's even if you go to a restaurant, we were talking about the Olive Garden, it's no longer 3-4 hours. You go in there and you're in there 45 minutes, right. You're in and out. Like, where's my food?
It's funny you say that because I'm guilty of it. I know my weakness and my food as fast as I can eat. Everyone's like, slow down. I'm like, first of all, I'm 20 years military, so I'm used to going, moving
exactly.
on. So, but you're right. And then all of a sudden I go to Italy and I do not feel pressured. I will sit there in the cafe and, it's almost like a switch in my brain flicks. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to hurry up. As long as I get a table in a reasonable time, I want to sit down. I'm going to relax. I like the people. I love sitting in a piazza and you watch the people walk by. I love it. I love doing that. Yeah. The problem is our restaurants are get in, eat, get out.
Yeah.
And because they got people waiting. And you ever go into Olive Garden a little early and you'll sit down. And by the time you come out, like not even an hour later, there's 500 people waiting to get in there. And they're like, the restaurant, we've turned everything into a business, including we've turned enjoyment into a business. And now you can't even enjoy enjoyment because it's become a transactional event.
Well, I think so. You just summed up America. You just summed up business in America, right? Whether it's a restaurant, and how many times can I replace people at this table? Healthcare.
Right.
Get this person out of the hospital so I can fill the bed up with the next person that I could drop a bill for, right? So this is what we've become.
That's right.
And
that is the evils of capitalism in a way.
And I would tell you, doing what we do now, and I love working with seniors. I already started the project in my next book. I want the wisdom of these seniors, and you'll get that wisdom when they're on their deathbed or when they're close. And I was actually speaking to one of our patients, and I said, I got to ask you, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self? You're 88 years old now. What would you tell your 25-year-old self? And most of the time you get that, I wish I would have spent more time with my family, not enough time work. And this guy looked at me, took about 20 seconds. You could tell he was thinking. He goes, I would tell myself, I can't believe it's over. I can't believe it's over. I can't believe how fast it went. Life just went like that.
Wow.
And I was thinking, damn, I never thought of it that way. He said, all those times when it was, well, the kids are busy, or we can't come there, we can't do this, and then I'll make time later. It's over. Boom.
Right. I got a funny story for you. You talk about timing. So today, I'm talking to somebody at work, and I can't remember what brought up the topic, but I referenced Pink Floyd's song Time. And I said, there's a great line in there. It's something like, then one day you look behind you, 10 years have gone behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed a starting gun. And I was like, I forgot. I wish I could remember what we were talking about. I mean, when you get over 50, this sort of thing happens.
Yeah.
But the point, though, is it's true. Before you blink, you're going to look back and be like, where did the time go? That's why I don't like it. One piece of advice I would not say. People say, because I work a couple of jobs. And top of the honorary consulate, I also have an adjunct job. I'm a consultant. I teach here at the university, and I may or may not have picked up another adjunct position. But anyways, I keep busy. On one hand, I do artificially stress myself. I get it. But I've thought about that. When I'm on my deathbed, everyone says, well, nobody's going to say I want to work more. I'm going to say no, but you're making the decisions now based on the circumstances you're in now.
Correct.
So it's easy to say, well, no one's going to look back and say, I wish I wouldn't have worked. Then what would you have done? Because that's the one thing they can't tell you. Exactly. What would you have done? I would have spent more time with my kids. Well, maybe the reason you couldn't spend more time with your kids was because you were working, because you blah, 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 blah. So I like that.
Yeah.
To go back and say, look, it's going to happen quick. So whatever you're going to do, be prepared for it. That's more realistic advice than just saying, well, spend more time with your family.
Do it.
Right.
I have a partner now in our business, and he's in his mid-70s. He's a surgeon. And I tell him, I said, Doc, you're in your mid-70s. You should think about retiring. He goes, why?
Exactly.
This is what I enjoy doing. This is my life. When it's all said and done, and you'll get these young kids climbing the corporate ladder, doing this. Why? They're doing it for the wrong reasons. Do you want to do it because you want to help people, or you want to do it to give yourself a title? And I said this to my son. I said, we'll drive by a cemetery and take a look. I said, do you notice one thing that's in common? And he said, yeah, they're all dead. No. They're all in the same position. They're lying flat. I can't tell who the CEO is. I can't tell who the secretary was. Everybody's got the same position, flat on your back. End of story. When it's all said and done, nobody gives a shit what you did. It's just as simple as that.
So you better enjoy it.
You better enjoy it.
Because you're the only one that's going to know it, and only while you're here. And then when you move on, God willing, you go up. Or if you're a good Catholic like me, you believe in purgatory, in which case I'll probably be there for a while. But the point, though, is nothing you're doing here matters except if it helps you. And listen, and that's a good one, because I don't want to be like, there are people that take that to the extreme. Well, I'm going to live life to the fullest. Yeah. There's a difference between being reckless and stupid versus just, trying to make the most out of your life.
Yeah.
We're all given certain talents, and we should try and maximize those talents to whatever that is. And I do think that there's nothing wrong with working. And I don't like the arbitrary age of, you're 67, you're 62, you're 65, you should retire. And do what?
Do what?
Am I going to watch TV? Because I'll tell you what, I think everything can become boring. Even sitting on a beach all day can become boring.
Oh, yeah.
So just go sit on a beach, play golf every day. At some point, you will get tired of that. So, I heard a long time ago, hell is getting anything you want anytime you want it. That's the definition of hell. Because at some time, even the things you enjoy doing and want to do, you'll get tired of them. Then what?
Right. I think you have to find what makes you happy.
Right.
Right. And I think that's why when people go, well, when you wrote the book, what does this mean? What is this personal happiness index and your personal GDP? What does that mean? First of all, figure out what you're good at. Figure out those natural resources. What do you got? Listen, if I'm 5'4", I'm not going to become an Italian. I can't jump. I can't run. I'm not going to become a basketball player. But you know what? I may be good at gardening. I may be good at it. Be the best at it. Whatever makes you happy, right? And I think for me, it's give it back then. I don't need when you do die, you can't take it with you. So how do you give it back? And I've said this to that being a good Catholic boy, there's people that are less fortunate than me. How do I give it back? Whether it's my time, my talent, my treasure, what is it? Give it back.
By the way, a funny note, when people talk about you can't take it with you, the irony in that, there is proof for that because the Egyptians believed that.
Right.
And they're all laying there, to your point, they're all dead mummies and all the stuff that they thought they were going to take with it. It's right there still, so you can't take it with you. But I also do think that we have certain talents that we were all given. You should try and figure out what makes you happy. Ideally that aligns with your talent, to your point. I might like playing football, but if I'm 5'4", 110 pounds, I'm not going to the NFL. Right. So while I enjoy it, maybe I take it as a hobby, but I also got to realize, what am I good at? Because if I am that good, maybe someone will take a shot. Hey, Doug Flutie was pretty short, picking on Doug. But my point is, the reality is you have to be realistic and balance. What you enjoy versus what you can do aren't always the same, and it's just a reality. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think what irritates me the most is when you read these motivational speakers and that's your story. You want to get up at 4 a.m. and you want to go work out and you think that and somebody's going to emulate that and go,
where's my success? Right.
Steve did that and I'm not successful. Well, that's his success though. That's what drives him. That's where his talents are. Figure out what you're talented in. You might be a night owl. You might be working it doesn't matter. My dad came to this country with a 5th grade education and he became a bus driver. And you know what? He said, this is what I am. This is what I'm going to do. And damn it, I'm going to be the best bus driver. And when he retired from being the bus driver, he had an exemplary record. Never an accident. Never anything. And he can say, I was the best. Didn't matter what I did. I was the best at it. And that's what I say to my kids. I don't care. You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer. Maybe you're not wired that way. There's those people are special. But just be good at what you want to do, and the money will come.
Well, that's right. Whatever you do, be good at it, and someone will want you and pay for it. But don't do it for the money, because I tell you what, I've seen too many people that want to do something because they think, well, this will be a way I can get rich, and then I can enjoy life. It's like you're actually wasting your life. Even if you get rich, you're wasting your life because that's not what you really want to do. So you find out what you want to do. Again, what you're good at, what your passions are. Live to that. And if it works out that you end up a gazillionaire, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. The bottom line is you will say, but I enjoyed it.
Exactly.
And that's more important. I do want to talk about the book because I have this little book next to me, which is ironically, you know what I mean, Chris? I mean, Nick, right. But let's talk about the book. And then you said you're working on another book, so let's go there.
Yeah. So the book actually was something I did. I've always wanted I love to write. And I would just jot notes down and jot things down. And I said to my wife, I want to write a book. And she said, okay, go ahead. So I started, and then the pandemic hit. So I was writing during the pandemic, and I thought, what's a concept? Like, how do we judge ourselves? Like, you see all these DISC assessments, and folks do all these personality things. And I said, when you take a look at it and think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And then you've got this happiness pyramid, and you've got this personal GDP. Countries, they rate themselves based on their natural resources, their technology, their human capital. Why can't we do the same? What are your natural resources? Tell me. What's your human capital? What do you know? Technology? No. Human touch. How good are you? Screw the technology. Anybody can learn it. How good are you at talking to somebody?
You clearly haven't met my students, but go ahead.
But that's what I say. So I'm fortunate enough to actually mentor students at the University of Pittsburgh, and I tell them, like, that's great. You're good. You can email. You can text. You can talk to me. Talk to me. What type of person are you, right? And that will then lead to how productive are you going to be? You put all those things together. That makes up your own country, your own personal GDP. Now, when you look at the countries that are the happiest, what are the things that they look at? Their social network, positive and negative affect, right? Like what is it? And just look at those things that make that up. And what makes you happy? How do you pay it forward? It's no different. And so I put those two things together, and I'm like, just take a look at yourself. Don't try to be something like when I talk to these students and I say, okay, you're in the MHA program, you're in the MBA program. What do you want to be? I want to be a CEO. Why? They're the boss. They're the ones that call the shots. Really? Because I've been there, and it's lonely and it sucks.
I have been a C-level. I've been a manager. I've been a director, and I demoted myself. I actually quit the job and I specifically said, I don't ever want to be a supervisor or manager again. You want to go to the top line? You got it. I'll help you. I'll give you a lift up the mountain because I don't want that crap.
But isn't it you as a professor, you as a mentor, and I say this even with my son and with the students, when people go, what type of a leader are you? You know, what type of a mentor? We're gardeners. Think about it. We plant that seed, we water it, we watch it grow. And the more you tend to that flower, the more you pull the weeds that strangle that growth, the more that's going to grow. And that's what we are as mentors. We want to be able to help these flowers grow, these students become their potential, see their potential. That's why I say to people, we are gardeners, we're not engineers. We're not here like churning out, you know, the same old. They're not widgets. Every flower is different. And I think that's how we have to treat these kids today. And that's why I want to pay it forward. I love doing the mentoring because they're all different.
And that sort of touches on before. We were saying there's no one way, one size that fits all either. And I think people have to accept that. There's nothing wrong with reading about other people and, you know, what made them successful.
Yeah.
But that does not, even if you did exactly what they did, that doesn't guarantee you success. And it doesn't mean that you might not do it 180 degrees completely different and be successful. Again, nothing wrong with understanding people. I think that's very important because there are certain what I'll call traits. It's not so much what they do. So, for example, you kind of mentioned like the 4 a.m. So if somebody wants to get up at 4 a.m. and go work out, I don't need to get up at 4 a.m. to go work out. But I think the trait is discipline. And I think that's what you need to see and not necessarily the exact action. So I think when people are reading through, you know, the lives of successful people, pay attention. It's not so much the specific action they did so much as what was it about them that made them successful.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too that I said in the book, baseball player Cody Bellinger, they asked him, I was watching an interview one night with him, and he had just gotten a contract, and the reporter asked him, you know, what comes first? Does happiness bring success, or does success bring happiness? He sat and thought a little bit, and he's like, you know what? Happiness. He's like, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Yeah, I don't have to make millions of dollars. That'll bring me the success. If I'm miserable, I'm always going to have that in the back of my mind. I'm always going to have that stress, that pressure, you know. And that think about Pittsburgh. Think about sports teams. I know we suck right now. We're terrible sports teams, okay? But how many guys have come to Pittsburgh, Pirates specifically, that their career was over? They come here and they revitalize. A.J. Burnett. Because you spent years in New York, the pressure of New York.
True.
I don't care how much money you're going to make. You're not happy. You come here, no one's going to be up your ass. No one gives a shit because the Pirates are terrible. So you could be yourself. You can play the game like you did when you were a kid.
I'll tell you what, and that kind of goes along with the Flyers having fired Tortorella recently, you know, and the irony is it started with it. Now, there's always the post-firing coach bump, but at the same time, I guarantee those players are a little more relaxed, and it's resulting in it being a little more comfortable, a little more happier, and now they're playing a little looser, and now they're being successful.
Go back to the Penguins of the early 90s. Brian Trottier, Joey Mullen, those guys were washed up. Coffee, played all those years. Why are you getting all these old guys? You bring them together, they're happy. Billy Guerin, coming to Pittsburgh after a long career. Gary Roberts, all of a sudden they find their scoring touch again. Because you know what? They're happy.
Right.
There's something about Pittsburgh. Say what you will. It's a small, big town for them, but it's
I came
family.
back. Listen, I came back. I lived away for 20-something years, and I came back. There is something about people always find their way home to Pittsburgh.
They do.
Now, let's talk about what's next for you.
Well, what's next is I launched my own company with a few physicians, surgeons, which is phenomenal, helping people, again, in healthcare. But I always have that itch to write that next book and just see what's next and just help people. I mean, any chance I get to mentor or to guide those ones that are coming up. I think you and I spoke, on the phone, and I said there is no elevator to success. Right. And I try to tell the kids the same thing. Like, you can't just get on the elevator. I worked in the steel tower for many years, and you can't just press 62 and go straight to the top. Take the stairs. You got to feel what it's like. You got to earn it. You got to pay your dues. And then sometimes you go up to a floor and you got to come back 2 flights. And then you turn around and there's somebody else struggling to get up. Put your hand out. Help them up. I mean, I love doing that. I love seeing other people's success. I never get jealous. So when people get this like animosity of, oh my God, how did he get in that position? Good for them. Celebrate their success. That's great. I am never going to be like, no, you're not good enough for that. I tell my son that all the time. I will never. You'll see people that say, well, my kid's better than me. Great. They're supposed to be. My kids are supposed to be better than me. My grandfather came here and wanted his son to be better than him, and he did.
And that's the American dream.
That's the American dream.
Always trying to work better to encourage the people, the next generation, to be better than you. And by the way, to that point, there's no reason being bitter and angry towards someone else's success doesn't help you succeed.
No.
It just takes the years off your life.
No.
So might as well even if you don't think they deserved it.
I think, I think you said earlier, political, but I think we as a people have lost compassion for one another.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, you asked about growing up, and I remember growing up in Oakland, and my mom would stand on the front porch, and at 2 years old, I could walk half a block by myself up to the corner store to get myself an ice cream. And she knew that on my way, everybody was going to watch me. Everybody was going to sit there, whether it was, this person or my aunt, but everybody would watch to make sure you got there okay. Now it's like, I don't give a shit. It's not my kid.
Right.
Like, watch your
now
kid.
They're afraid to do it now. Because,
right.
I don't want to get sued,
Right. Watch your kid.
Oh, no. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if I talk back to my mother, I got a mouthful of knuckles when I was a kid. You do it now, and somebody's calling CYS, and somebody's calling here, and we've lost that discipline. I think we're beating our children.
I still think it's an intentional thing to undermine families.
I agree.
I do. I think it's something external. I think it's almost evil and diabolical, but it's meant to undermine the family because that's the core of Western civilization in a lot of ways. And I think if you can break the families, then you can essentially break the country. And so I think there's something more going on there because you can't tell me that as a society we're happier and therefore we should keep doing what we're doing. We're more miserable. Families are more broke. All the stats would tell me that, suicides, everything is in the negative. More drug use, more overdose. So it's kind of like the definition of insanity. So if we didn't have these problems like this, not that it was a utopia,
no.
We had problems, but not to this degree that we have now. So if you can't tell me that what we've been doing since probably the 60s and the 70s has somehow not made our society better, then I would tell you, then roll the clock back.
Well, so here's something interesting, and you could do this, and anybody who's listening can do this. You can Google it. Take a look at the top 10 countries ranked by GDP. Then take a look at the top 10 countries ranked by happiness. Not one falls on the other.
Interesting.
Right? So money doesn't bring happiness.
Never does.
It just doesn't. It creates more problems.
That's a good song. More money, more problems.
More money, more problems.
All right, last thing. Where can folks get the book?
So they can reach out to me directly. It's on Amazon, but if you want, I'll give you a deal and either reach me on LinkedIn or you can just email me at nick.vizzoca@derma, DERMAVIVERE.com.
All right, and I'll put that down in the description so you can read it down in the description.
Yeah,
but reach out to Nick. And this was the 100th episode, my friend.
Chintan.
I can't believe it.
Right?
100 episodes.
I'm honored.
Damn near 30 countries. I think I could check the stats.
Isn't that humbling for you, though? I mean,
it's crazy.
Congratulations to you.
It's crazy. It shows me people are crazy.
No, it shows them that they're sane.
No, but again, I want to thank you for being my guest today. I do appreciate that.
It was an honor. Thank you.
I do. We're going to have you back because I don't feel that I bring a guest on one time and go, peace out. I always want to follow up, see how it's going. So I'm trying to bring people back to have more conversation.
Now that you have video, maybe we can have an espresso or a biscotti.
I'm going to do like this.
What? You know what? Maybe La Prima will bring us some coffee.
I got to do something. And Joe would love it. He would love to keep working on his engineering and editing skills. So, again, well, thank you folks for tuning in today. I hope to be back next week. And I always say God willing because we're supposed to say that in everything we do. So God willing, we'll be back next week. Appreciate my listeners from all over the world. Again, as the honorary consular here in Pittsburgh, I have moved. I am now officially on 304 Ross Street, Suite 401. Come on by and visit when I'm in there. I'm trying to do this by appointment only because that is literally a voluntary position. By the way, I think a lot of people don't know that the honorary consul does not get paid. I don't say that as a boo-hoo, but what that means is my day job is the one that actually pays me, so that's the one that gets my attention, and then I try and work with folks as much as possible to help them with different services. So again, reach out to me on different different streaming platforms. You can find me anywhere. If you're listening to me, you've obviously found me, so thank you very much for tuning in, and until next time, have a wonderful and blessed week.